Well, I've seen the videos just as thousands of people around the country have, and the videos speak for themselves. I think it's deeply concerning, the things that are being said. This is an individual that was a city resident. It appears that he was present, exercising his First Amendment rights to record law enforcement activity, and also exercising his Second Amendment rights to.
Okay, stop. I'm sorry I'm stopping the video so soon, but what this officer is doing right now is unlawful. Peace officers are generally not allowed to come to conclusions during an open investigation. There's still an open investigation concerning this young man that was just unalived by the federal officer. So, no way, no how can this officer, sheriff, or whatever he is, he's bound by law not to come to a conclusion during an open investigation. They are expected to conduct investigations in a manner that is fair and transparent, adhering to legal procedures and maintaining the integrity of the investigation. So, what this officer is doing right now, claiming that this man came in a peaceful manner, he was adhering to his Second Amendment rights. Everyone's seen the video. As a law enforcement officer, you can see the video, but you also know regarding police procedure. Someone is coming to a protest and they have a deadly weapon. The whole scenario changes. Okay, you have a split second to react to of life and death, not just for the officer itself, but the other civilians that are in the area. But let's continue.
Lawfully be armed in a public space in the city. So I think very obviously there are serious questions that are being raised. And I think the greater issue is, even if there is an investigation that ultimately proves that at the time of the shooting it was legally justified, I don't think that even matters at this point, because there is so much outrage and concern around what is happening in the city.
What do you mean it doesn't matter at this point? You mean the situation on the ground is already, the impression is left?
People have had enough.
Boy. So, unfortunately, we got to talk about the latest psyop from the mainstream liberal media in the Democrat Party, which is this idea that they care about the Second Amendment, right? They're pretending as if they care about the Second Amendment. They care about your right to keep and bear arms, right? To carry, okay, conceal legally in public. They're pretending as if they actually give a damn about that in order to sway public opinion against Trump and Border Patrol and ICE, right? Against federal law enforcement. That is what they're doing.
Oh, I know this is not your lane, but I got to ask you about what's happened in Minneapolis. As a member of the Trump cabinet, are you concerned to see another American citizen ends up dead, shot by federal law enforcement?
Jonathan, it's a tragedy when anyone dies, but I can tell you the situation on the ground there is being stirred up by Governor Walz. I was out there 2 weeks ago. Governor Walz declined to provide a security detail for me to go into the Minnesota Capitol with the state police. So he is fomenting chaos because there is substantial waste, fraud, and abuse. My job as Treasury Secretary is to investigate that. And I think that this chaos that's going out there, and again, I am sorry that this gentleman is dead, but he did bring a 9mm semi-automatic weapon with 2 cartridges to what was supposed to be a peaceful protest. I think that there are a lot of paid agitators who are ginning things up, and the governor has not done a good job of tamping this down.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, he was an ICU nurse, worked for the Veterans Administration, and there's no evidence that he brandished the gun whatsoever. In fact, it appears that he was disarmed before he brought
a gun. Have you ever gone to a protest, Jonathan?
I mean, we do have a Second Amendment.
Okay, everyone is gaslighting here. And just like the Treasury Secretary said, he's a high official, a top official from the Trump administration. He's coming to Minnesota to investigate the fraud. Let's not forget, there's been at least $9 billion worth of fraud that's been found in Minnesota. So that needs to be investigated. Anybody here think that maybe Mayor Frey and Governor Walz are gaslighting to keep the focus on, the rioting and stuff like that, and these citizens being unalived and these criminals not being picked up by ICE to keep them from finding the fraud? That's what I think. And if these local officials really cared about their citizens, they would not be inciting a riot. They would not be calling ICE agents fascists and Gestapo and all of these things. If they really cared about their citizens, they would tell their citizens, you need to stand down. Do not bring guns to protest. You do not bring guns to peaceful protests. I don't care if you're licensed to carry or not. The officers have a right to defend themselves if they feel that they're in danger. And let's not forget that this man that had the gun wasn't peacefully protesting. No, he was agitating. And when the officers approached him, he decided that he was going to resist and fight. What do you expect them to do? Help me make sense of this. And then you have this reporter who's going back and forth with Bennett, trying to gaslight him, talking about the Second Amendment right and blah, blah, blah. We have to put this stuff in right context. You're not allowed to brandish your firearm unless you're going to use your firearm. I'm not sure if Minnesota is an open carry state or not, but most of the times when you're in public, you are required to have your firearm covered. And there's no justification whatsoever of this gentleman bringing 2 cartridges, 2 magazine clips. For what? Were you planning on going to war? Let me know in the comments. What do you think about this? Okay? But this video is, I'm responding and reacting to a Black conservative perspective. I will put the link of the original video in the description, but make sure you like, share, and comment. But let's continue with this interview.
In this country that
Jonathan, have you ever gone to a protest?
I mean,
Have you gone to a protest?
I mean, no, actually, as a reporter covering it.
Okay, I've been to a protest.
Yeah.
Guess what? I didn't bring a gun. I brought a billboard.
Okay, Secretary Besant, thank you for joining us.
You have been a supporter of the Second Amendment. When Secretary Noem says, I don't know of any peaceful protester that shows up with a gun and ammo rather than a sign, do you believe Americans have the right to bear arms while they're protesting?
Well, first of all, I'm a co-sponsor of Louisiana's law that allows you to have a concealed carry permit. It's worked very well there. I don't know the state law in Minnesota. I know in a state like Louisiana, and frankly, most states, you are not allowed to carry.
Notice he said concealed state permit. Thinking about all the stress and cortisol levels being raised as a result of it, this is a perfect time to share one of my sponsor's products called MitoBlue. MitoBlue has been proven to reach your mitochondria at a cellular level to help reduce cortisol levels. To get 20% off your first order, put in the words KP20 during checkout.
And you stick to the fact, you understand that this case, what happened to Alex Preddy here, okay, who decided to interact with ICE to interfere in law enforcement, right? As they're doing their jobs, he decided to do that while armed, has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. The reason why you know this is because the outcome of the case against the officer, if he's actually criminally charged at all, okay, the outcome, regardless of if he's found guilty or not guilty, will not affect your ability to carry. It will not affect your ability to carry around officers. It will not affect your ability as a gun owner to carry at all. That's why it has nothing to do with the Second Amendment, okay? So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and react to this conversation between Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino and Dana Bash, okay, who, again, is going to pretend as if she cares about the Second Amendment. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
I just want to also go back to what I was asking about with regard to what Secretary Noem said, that he was brandishing a gun. At any point, do you have any evidence that, yes, he had a gun on his person? Was he brandishing it? Was he a threat because he had a gun in his hand that put law enforcement in danger?
Dana, we heard the law enforcement officer say gun, gun, gun. So at some point, they knew there was a gun. So again, that is going to be part of that investigation as to what was happening on the ground there between those victims, the Border Patrol agent victims, and the suspect.
Both the police chief in Minneapolis, O'Hara, and Governor Walz say Preddy was legally licensed to carry a concealed weapon. So are you saying it's not okay for him to exercise his Second Amendment right, not to mention his First Amendment right to be there in the first place, but his Second Amendment right to carry a gun? And if you do, you can be shot by federal law enforcement?
No, I didn't say that, Dana. I never said that. What I'm saying is we respect that Second Amendment right, but those rights don't count when you riot and assault, delay, obstruct, and impede law enforcement officers, and most especially when you mean to do that beforehand.
How do you know that?
When you mean to do that beforehand, when you show up to an active crime scene, don't leave the crime scene, and you're armed, then you've got the decision-making process for that individual doesn't seem to be very good. Now, back to the Second Amendment. What you're saying about the Second Amendment is peacefully protesting with firearms. Absolutely, I've done that myself, and fully support that. But not when you perpetrate violence, obstruct, delay, or obfuscate Border Patrol in the performance of their duties in an
There's
active
no
crime
evidence that
scene.
he was perpetrating.
Okay, so you see the gaslighting by Dana, whatever her last name is, I forget. You know, she's saying that there's no evidence that he was trying to impede law enforcement, blah, 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 blah. Again, she's talking about his Second Amendment right. Again, we're talking about federal officers that are there on the premises to conduct their duties to remove illegal immigrants, criminals, from the United States, from the state of Minnesota. Again, we're talking about a gentleman that happens to be an ICU nurse. So I'm sure he's seen, pew-pew wounds and things like that in ICU. He's familiar with this. So I don't understand how you would think that you were coming to peacefully protest with 2 magazines and a weapon. And then you have this Dana talking about, well, so you're against gun ownership. He never said that. And I appreciate that he also mentioned, hey, I protest too. I'm a person that will go out there and protest if I don't believe in something as well. And yes, I bring my firearm along, but I don't come to obstruct justice. I don't come to impede an investigation. I don't, if I'm sure, if a law enforcement officer were to tell him that he needs to stand down, that he needs to go against the wall, that he needs to not touch his firearm, he wouldn't. We know these things. As a retired law enforcement order, I can concur that these are the things that we know. But let's continue with the video.
See it if there is, that he was intending to massacre law enforcement, other than the fact that he was there and he had a gun lawfully.
Okay, so again, let's get into this Second Amendment conversation, right? Because you got to understand the psyop that the media is trying to engage in when it comes to swaying public opinion, right? Because this is really about trying to sway the opinions of conservatives, Trump supporters, libertarians, especially libertarians. That's who they're going after, okay? People have to take a step back and understand that you're being played. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with this. Alex Preddy was not killed because he was carrying around law enforcement. Notice how I've never said anything about him carrying while being there. I don't even think him carrying while being there is a problem. I don't care about that. He has a right to do that. I will defend his right to do that all day. I am defending his right to do that, right? But you have responsibilities when you choose to do that. And confrontational with law enforcement who are also carrying, they also have deadly force, right? They also have firearms. At that point, he becomes an irresponsible gun owner. He was killed not because he carried around law enforcement. He was killed because he irresponsibly carried around law enforcement. And when everybody signs up for a gun class, right? When everybody gets their concealed carry permit, they teach you, do not escalate, de-escalate.
Right.
Do not look for confrontation. He did everything that they tell you do not do when you're getting your concealed carry permit, when you're taking your gun class. And that's why he was killed. And responsible gun owners know this. Responsible gun owners know this is not an attack on our Second Amendment. It's not. It's not an attack on our rights. Regardless of the outcome of what happens to this guy, it ain't changing anything about the current state of the Second Amendment, right? And our ability to keep and bear arms. It's not changing that. And I just want people to understand this. I really want people to understand this, because a lot of people are getting fooled and they're getting tricked into believing that this is about the Second Amendment, and it's not. They want to make it about the Second Amendment because they're trying to sway public opinion against Trump. They're trying to trick conservatives, and specifically libertarians, into believing that somehow, some way, this is an attack on your constitutional rights. It is not. Because at the end of the day, cops have the right of self-defense as well, too.
Absolutely.
Right? Which, again, people tend to forget that self-defense rights go both ways, okay? And in that situation, whether morally justified or not, okay, take your emotions out of it. In that situation, these officers were presented with what legally is likely to be perceived as a deadly threat.